And we're live!
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, and I would love to introduce to you guys one of my best friends, Jeff, whom is just an amazing treat to be with, and all of his brilliance and energy and heart. And I would love to introduce you guys, and I hope you guys learned something today.
Hey guys, Jeff Zakarski here. This is my first recording that's going to be going up on YouTube where I don't have a script. So, yay!
Woo! Yeah. Hooray for winging it.
Yeah, yes. Winging it is what's happening right now. So, we will apologize in advance for any sort of...
No apologies whatsoever. You guys took time out of your busy day to listen to us, and that's your fault. Well, I just wanted, the reason why I wanted us to get together is because Jeff and I have been doing a lot of work together. A ton of crazy stuff has happened in the last 14 months or so, and it's been quite the adventure. So I just wanted to give some context as to how we met, and really wanted to pick Jeff's brain because I've noticed like such a shift in like leadership and like his heart and just like all that growth. So I wanted everyone else to kind of learn from that as well. So that's really the purpose of this conversation. And I hope we don't bore you guys. Cool. So we met through. Why don't you talk a little bit about accomplishment coaching and sort of like how you came about even joining the program? What made you take that leap of faith to do such an intense program?
I get asked this question a lot, and I feel like at some level I have a similar answer each time.
Okay.
But it usually comes out probably in some way, shape, or form a little bit different. I would say that I've been looking for coaching for a while. It's always been part of my life. It's always been who I've been. And when I grew up, it was always something that I tried to do in my old, corporate tech community.
Okay.
It's something that I do with like the artists and the musicians that I work with, and I think I just didn't really have what it was called.
Interesting.
I don't think I had a name around it for what it was that I was doing or experiencing or connecting through. And so I guess about a year and a half ago, something like that. I
so long yet. So
I know, right? Well, it all started with we'll give a shout out to some of the dating apps in the world.
Which one was it?
It was Bumble.
Oh,
Bumble.
Nice.
Yeah,
Bumble.
I figured
that's romantic.
I think I was looking for a woman that was willing to make the first move. Looking for somebody super intelligent, super bold, super beautiful, and
check.
Right? Yeah.
He's talking about himself, guys.
I swiped right on myself. No. I met somebody who I'm actually engaged to now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure you haven't heard enough congratulations over the past few months.
Yeah, no, it never gets old, so thanks. I met the program through her. She is a coach, and a badass one at that.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to the program. She's like, hey, I just noticed that like there's a lot of these things that you naturally talk about and the type of person that you are. I would love to just introduce you to the program that I went through and see if it would be something that would be for you. And I was like, that's funny. Here you go. Like, this isn't actually a date. This is a recruitment seminar.
My God.
But it turned out to not be anything like that at all. It just ended up being a beautiful relationship, and then I got introduced to the work. And it was. I remember like.
Did you have a coach before AC?
I did actually.
AC coach?
No, a coach a long time ago. Somebody I went to high school with.
Oh wow!
Who I hadn't talked to in like 15 years, and then like 6 years ago, I was just like, I saw a post on Facebook, and I was like, this is really interesting what this person is doing. And I'm usually one of those people that tries to do everything up here. Like all in my head, like it's like a picnic table with like only me, even though there's room for like 8 other people.
Okay.
So the instinct there for me was like, oh, I'm reached out. I'm interested in what she's talking about, what she has going on, and through that I got exposed to a little bit of this work.
Okay.
And I think even first time around, I was like, I don't really get this. I don't really know.
I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
I think it's so deep and complex that it's hard to explain, right? It's like, what's the meaning of life, right? I feel like it's hard to, I don't know, sometimes hard to describe it.
Well, somebody told me one time, actually it was Casey who said, she's like, it's like trying to explain what chocolate tastes like to somebody who's never had chocolate before.
Wow.
You can be like, oh, it's got a flavor and it's sweet and it can be rich and all this stuff, but it's like when you taste it, you're like, oh yeah, I kind of get that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that.
So, but yeah, through basically the thing that I learned from that is like by getting in and experiencing, I got to see how it worked for me.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like that it's not a formula. It's not a formula for success. It's not if you just do this one thing, like your life is going to work out.
Yeah, it's not like a one size fits all programming, right? It's like really catered depending on what you want out of it and what your goals are and what are you trying to get, what do you want in life, right?
Yeah, and so you start to notice like where you want to place the focus, like what is it actually going to do for you, and the biggest thing is like finding the coach that's going to be work for you. Like I have a coach, I coach my clients, and one of the biggest things that we figure out is making sure that we're actually a match to work together. It's kind of like, you don't want to date somebody you're not a match to, so why put yourself in that position, every week, every month, every year. It's all started kind of with like a taste. I did it for 6 months and saw some results and got me a few places, and I kind of was just like, all right, let's see where my life goes after here. And then it was like 4 or 5 years later I actually found myself more open to it than I was back then.
So you were working with him or her for 4 years, or only for 6 months?
I worked with her for 6 months.
Oh, okay.
We worked on it was more of a specific breed of coaching. She had a pretty big nutrition back.
Oh,
and so
right.
For me, like where I was in my life and like just dealing with like stomach, gut, and stuff like that, I was like, of course, like I would rather go to try something alternative than go to a Western medicine doctor and have them give me like a whole bunch of pills and all that kind of stuff.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So for me, it's very similar. For me, I hired a coach, and that's how I got into it. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting to see results. Like I started running again. I was well, for me, I was like completely out of shape, like whatever that means, right? So after I hired a coach, I started waking up early and started running around like the river a lot. And I was like, wow, like I'm going back to the gym, because I was kind of like feeling like kind of like not depressed, but like down. Like I was like, oh man, I'm getting like a gut and like not really feeling good. So that's how I like got into it. And then I went to like a ton of networking events, and I was like, I kept seeing like all these coaches, and then I kept hearing accomplishment coaching. I'm like, interesting. And then Jocelyn, who is one of the mentor coaches, she was like, hey, Davidson, like, why don't you come check it out? And then I was like, okay. And then she invited me like I think 3 or 4 times. And finally I was like, all right, fine, like whatever. So then I came to observe, and I was just like, it doesn't seem too hard. Like I could do this shit, like no problem. And then I signed up like 3 months later after the observation, and I was like, holy shit, what did we get ourselves into? And then the rest is history, right?
Well, I'm curious, like for you, like my experience was I was obviously I guess immersed into it through Casey, and I had seen it every day, and I was being pulled into it, and I signed up on the day of the workshop.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah.
I did not do that.
Yeah, I know. And so that's why I was curious, is like you went, like you got contacted like 3 or 4 times to like go. And so for you, like what what was the thing that what happened during that 3 months? Like, what was the thing at the end of the 3 months that goes, this is actually
Christine
what
Sachs.
I want for me?
One word.
Oh.
Christine Sachs. That's one word, ladies and gentlemen. No, it's funny. So, well, yeah, I mean, short story, Christine Sachs, but the long story is, yeah, like, I definitely felt like something was missing. Like, you know, like, I felt like I was kind of going through the motions of life, right? Like, I was like, oh, like, my life isn't that bad, right? It's, you know, I have friends. You know, I feel like I'm becoming smarter every day by all the books I'm reading. Like, I'm getting more fit every day. But there was, like, a piece of me that was like, there's something more to life than just, like, you know, like, working a job and then, you know, clocking out, clocking in. And then after my 9 to 5, it's like, oh, this is where the real shit happens, you know? So, yeah, I guess, like, that was it. And then similar to you, I didn't know what to call it, but I was helping. I guess I was coaching everyone else around me. People would come to me whenever they had like job questions, like, "Hey, like, should I accept this offer?" Or like, "Hey, I'm having this relationship issue." So in a way, like, I was coaching. I just didn't. I wasn't aware that was what it was called. So. After when you shared your story, I noticed that it's like something from within that it's like more intuitive for a lot of us coaches, where you kind of feel like, oh wow, like there's a lot of this I already know, and it's just kind of like having it. The program brings it more out of you, like it's more like you get more in tune to your like intuition. I feel like, yeah. So that's interesting. So I'm glad you shared that, because like I kind of didn't make that, because from the program I thought it was kind of like, oh no, anyone could do this program, and I think yes, that's true, but I think it's more like a calling from within, like a higher purpose, like I guess it was in us all along. We just need to be like awoken. Right?
Yeah, and that's interesting because you know we have conversations with people like every day, and sometimes you know we talk about coaching, sometimes we just talk about, I don't know, home improvements on the house, or you know whatever it is, and you know, it's from both of these experiences, I'm getting that, like, we didn't even know this was something technically that was available, or we didn't understand the exact flavor of what it is. So it's really cool to see, like, if I remember, like, all the people that got to go through the program with us and became, like, our best friends and almost, like, what I would call our family. You know, it wasn't until somebody asked them if this would be something that they would be interested in, until it became like a thing. You know, it's just intuition, and it's like, I feel like some people may have sought it out on their own, done a bunch of Google searches or whatever your favorite search engine is. Not Yahoo. But
it's like the don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's like I think a lot of us think we know a lot more than we do, and I was present to in the classroom, like how much we don't know, but not in like a scary way, more in like what's possible. There's so much more out there. And that's so powerful, and I think that's sort of like one of the jobs, one of our, you know, the role of a coach is to really help you tap into the don't know, and really expand that comfort zone. Really.
Yeah, and I mean, you might find out new things there that you're equally as scared of as something that you already knew you were scared of. Yeah. And you might find out that there's something that's super easy or super powerful or like super exciting. I mean, like, truth be told, like, if you would have talked to me a year ago, like, I wouldn't be sitting here on this video, like, having a conversation with zero script, you know, just
the script is a big one, guys.
Just sitting here with Davidson. We have this little thing that's like right behind the video. It just says like, start. And so
it says don't fuck up.
So, and you know what, if we do, it's kind of part of life. I mean, I think, you know, that's one of the things that I've really gotten. It doesn't mean that I'm not still scared to fuck up. It doesn't mean that I don't royally fuck up on a weekly basis, but I would say that the significance of it, or the impact to my like emotional well-being, is different, you know?
It's interesting, because I definitely feel like because of the program, I'm more inclined to do things like this, whereas in the past, I was like, oh, like, why do it? Like, there's no need to do it. Like, why would I put myself out there for the risk of being ridiculed or being made fun of, right? So I think we're just more open to the like, hey, like, you know, if it happens, if people like it, it's cool. If not, like, you know, it's cool too.
So here's a question for you. So
okay.
So if we look back, like we've known each other, what now? Is it like
10 years?
10 years.
It feels like 10
years, but more accurately on a calendar spectrum, like 15 months or so.
Yeah.
So
less,
if we look back 15 months, what was something that you were scared to do 15 months ago that you're no longer scared to do today, or you've broken down some barriers to like be more confident, comfortable, courageous to tackle it?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because like the more super obvious one is like actually having like guy best friends. Like before that, it was only like women that I could really connect with, because I felt like women were just more in touch with their like feelings and their heart, and speak more from their heart rather than like ego. So like even like the relationship that we have, like that I never had that with like any guys. Like it was very like, you know, like stupid stuff. It's like, yeah, let's get drunk, or like just talking about like
sports.
Yeah, just not having like deep conversations like we're having now, or
Sure.
about to have. You know, just like every time we talk, it's always like on a like a different level. You know, so I feel like for me that's probably like the biggest thing. Like I just never connected with a lot of men. I felt like I was like bullied a lot, and you know, I felt like it was always like, you know, like who can bench more, and you know, which is like cool and all, but like I just felt there was like little substance to it, you know.
Yeah. And that kind of, you know, brings us to what we were talking about earlier with just the concept of masculinity as a whole.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, what is masculinity? What is this defined as? Is it defined as the guys that are, you know, benching however many hundreds of pounds and, you know, just going out and getting drunk, and is that perceived as masculinity, or is it actually so much bigger than that? You know,
yeah, that's a good question. So what do you think? Like what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that you and I have been talking about is that, and it's been reinforced by just people to me, where I would say I can tell you what my definition of it used to be, and where it's kind of evolved to. I think that, like, you know, to be a man, like, primally, we're thought to be, you know, you think back to the caveman, you know, and how it's evolved, you know, since then, and even how society has grown up with the patriarchal, masculine, provider, you know, strength, you know, show no weakness, you know, emotions aren't safe or not necessary.
It's like sort of like emotions are like a bad thing, I feel like, in a lot of societies.
And I've even taken on some of that, just I think as a result of how, I don't know, my life experience of what emotions were emotions safe, what could I express, what was I okay with expressing, or like what did I express to get love?
Okay. Like what are some of those that you expressed to get love?
Well, I mean, historically, I think for me, and this is, you know, where the vulnerability comes in, because I can actually talk about it now, but you know, I mean, it was, you know, usually it had to be like I had to either be really sad to get the love that I wanted, or to get the closeness or the intimacy that I wanted but couldn't talk about or label or describe, or I had to like really blow some shit up to like really feel it. So it was like, totally like the two opposite sides of the spectrum. And simply both of those for me was just it was survival. It was the only way that I knew how to connect with people and to get the love, or to
get attention,
or to just extremely manipulate the situation.
Like to get a reaction.
Totally.
Sort of,
And I think in today's world, like, you know, it goes too often, like where we start to gain a little bit more acumen about what that is. And what it is to us as individuals, like what are our needs, and taking a look at those and being like, well, where can I get these? Where can I get these met? Is it from my partner? Is it from my friends? Is it from my parents? You know? And then I think if we look back to what masculinity is, like, masculinity isn't just this keeping your emotions bottled up. It isn't about only finding, you know, very non-emotionally expressed ways to gain love. It's more about being fully expressed, being fully authentic, connecting to those places of your heart that scare you shitless in relationships and interactions and stuff like that, and still choosing to do it anyway, because it's being vulnerable and creating those intimacy connections and like having these kind of conversations where I feel like we're actually connected here as opposed to connected up here. So I've seen an evolution in my understanding of how I embrace masculinity, and I even still see where like I've grown comfortable growing into, but I'm still like, I got this like never-ending road that's there that I don't know what's there, and it's still scary, but what's being reinforced by my interactions is that when I'm connecting to here and I'm my truth and I'm my authentic self, that everything is real. Wow,
that was a lot. So yeah, some of the things I've heard from your share, or some of the takeaways, is that, just be true to who you are, right? Because everyone's different, right? Some people, I think naturally, like men in general, like want to be loved and want to be appreciated and want to, just be real, right? But I think, like you said, society, whether it's like NFL or NBA or even like CrossFit athletes in TV, I feel like it's like, oh, like a man is supposed to be like the person that breaks through like windows to save like the cat or the fire, like there's a fire in the house and they come save. So it's more, there's a lot of like action oriented, and there's a lot of like muscles and but there's not a lot of whereas like I feel like people like me and you, like the way that we get our power is to be able to like really connect with anyone, and really be able to like just speak the truth and not be afraid of sort of like even crying. Like I noticed like I cried a lot this year. Both of us have, it seems like.
Sponsorship by Kleenex.
Yeah, thanks Mark and Christine for making me cry so much. Taking no responsibility at all
whatsoever.
But I found that actually that's when, because I was speaking my truth, like that's actually when I felt the most powerful, because I felt like really connected to everyone in the room, and vice versa. Like I'm sure you guys felt connected to me, and like were just able to like understand me or get me a lot more, right, because of that.
Well, yeah, and I think you pointed on one thing. We're talking about vulnerability that is kind of on this one side, right? Like the ushy, gushy, courageous, vulnerable, yet fearful aspect that is actually, that creates additional connection. But then, and on the other side, it's like, the heroes of the people that run into buildings or stand up or like have these like, I guess the notoriety of how they show up.
Yeah.
It has a component to as well. But I think at the end of the day, like neither one is, I think it's important to point out that neither one is good or bad.
Right. And it's just being true to, or just finding from within, like, like if you have an urge to help the world, then do that, right? If you have the urge to spread positivity through like weightlifting and empowering men to do that, right? But it's just another dimension of the complexity of masculinity that we choose, that the media and like the mainstream chooses not to really touch upon, really, right?
Yeah, and all of the mediums between.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and I think it's just like we were reading about the masculinity from Lewis Howes.
Shout out to Lewis Howes.
and just the point that there's so many versions of masculinity, and there's so many more. Probably.
What was your favorite one in that book? Like,
man,
what resonated with you the most?
I could not even remember the names of them, but
like the Joker one, I felt like that really resonated with me, because like I feel like a lot of I know for me, well, I think a lot of people, I feel like oftentimes like a way to be vulnerable is just to joke about it, where it'll be you could be sarcastic and be like, oh, like of course this happened, my life kind of sucks, and like everyone's laughing. It's like, yeah, your life does suck. But it's like you just being authentic, you being real, like, yeah, like right now I just don't feel that great, but I'm going to make a joke about it. And, it's just being vulnerable, but that's like a more acceptable way, but it's not a sustainable way to to live life, like if that's gonna like, just gonna be kind of like your escape instead of dealing with whatever that emotion is.
Well, yeah, and like you said, the escape, like, right? Like, what are you trying to escape from when you do that? Like, because you can, I mean, I'm pretty hilarious, mostly at really bad jokes, you know? But sometimes I'm more intellectually hilarious. I'm pointed out that I like too many dad jokes. My bad. Or my dad. No. But you said like escape, right? Like, and so we use those sometimes to actually escape from something or to protect us from something.
Yeah.
So that mask, that Joker mask, is like what is like? Why might that have put in place? Like, is that something you say that
it's
resonates
like
with you? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Like people notice. People have been reflecting, you guys mainly, that it'll be like a serious moment, and I'll make a joke about it to kind of like make light of the situation, but it's the reality. It's harder for me to just speak the truth. And like a good example could be like, like let's say I just got fired from a job, right? And then, I can joke and be like, oh, like it's okay. Like I didn't like my boss anyway. She was like she was like an asshole, or the C word. I don't want to say that. And it's like everyone laughs like yeah, like she was, ha ha ha. But in reality, there's some like instead of me dealing with like okay maybe. It really hurt because I really cared about our relationship with her, and it hurt that she couldn't see, my greatness. Like she didn't, was, like I don't know, I don't know what it is, but it's just like, I just didn't want to deal with that. Like maybe it was something I did, and I didn't want to take responsibility for being committed. Like maybe I wasn't as committed to that relationship to making it work. It could be a lot of things, but I feel like it's just like I wasn't willing to really deal with the reality. I'm just making, kind of using it as escape so that I don't have to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I think I have the same thing a little bit. Like part of probably my dad jokes are to maybe diffuse the discomfort or not know. I don't know what to say maybe, and so I'm like, oh, let's make a joke about this thing, or let's point this thing, so shine the flashlight over here so that it's not maybe looking at me. And I got a little bit of that from your story, talking about like making light of something, either it removes some of the seriousness from or it actually
which is okay every once in a while, but it shouldn't be like your go-to where like it's like it's where it's like destructive, because sometimes it is destructive.
Yeah, well, I just be like in case by case, right? Like, why is it showing up? Like, what is it actually doing? What is it preventing you from? What is it keeping you from actually getting? Like, all these questions that we could ask if we were actually coaching around a specific topic is just getting really curious as to what's behind it and how it plays a role in your life.
Yeah, and that's important too, because like I just got something out of it, because sometimes it works like brilliantly, right? Like I guess Robin Williams could be like a perfect example, right? Because he's clearly brilliant. Like he's made millions of people laugh in his life, right? But at what expense, right? Maybe if he had a better way to deal with it, or he had like a relationship like you and I do, where we can just be authentic and just speak what's going on, whether it's sadness, anger, upset, whatever it is. Maybe if he had a support structure and was able to have a safe space, he would still be here and impacting millions more lives every year, So it's just something food for thought. So it can create a ton of brilliance, but at the same time, like at what expense?
Sure. Well, and I'd say like to that, like awareness is a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it hurts.
But it's also a gift, I guess it just depends how we choose to look at it. Like you were saying with the mask, it's like, what are we avoiding by this? And like, but what is the awareness that you get out of it? And then going, okay, well, I see what I was doing there. Yeah. And it's like,
and choose differently sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to. Yeah.
Figure out if it's good for you or not. Like, sometimes,
depending on what situation and
Sure. Yeah. And you don't have to change. And it's not a good or bad thing. I mean, it's just something that we look at sometimes, and like you and I see things, sometimes, and even in these conversations, I would guess that we're probably even seeing something for ourselves. Like, when you share something with me, like I usually get something out of it for myself, and I'm like, oh, that's what I do. You know.
Yeah. So let's use like a real example. So
Oh,
I guess
geez.
what's so yeah, what's something that recently I have shared with you throughout our conversations that you got something, and then I'll do the same. If it's
Sure.
easier, I can start. So.
Oh, I mean. I mean, I guess what I'm even getting out of this is just the awareness of, from you posing that question to me, because it's like, oh, now you have to figure out something to talk about, and I'm just here going, shit, like, I don't know where to go from here, and where I'm going is just actually acknowledging that, like, I didn't really have an agenda, but like, this is what's coming up for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of just acknowledging that I felt like, oh God, I have to say like this really
you gotta be brilliant.
I gotta be brilliant right now because
Hashtag brilliant.
Because all of these people that are taking however long it is at this
the millions
30
of
minutes,
viewers.
30 minutes. I didn't think that I could actually talk for more than 10 minutes. So thanks for hanging out with us for 30 minutes, 31 minutes.
But you guys should be paying us just to let you. So his rate is $500 an hour, just to let you know. So if you guys want someone at $400 an hour, I'll be more than glad to take the hit. And no,
yeah, but okay. So let's point to this little thing, this Joker mask right now, right? Both of us just did it.
Yeah,
both of us just got a little.
So
funny,
let's dissect that.
Humor,
Let's dissect that a little bit.
Like so. Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, I have a feeling, or an assertion, or an assumption that like yours may show up similar to mine.
Right. And what is that? Just say it.
Well, yours.
No, just say.
I mean, for me, it's really like, it diffuses the situation. Like it takes the danger out of this perceived fear that, I don't know, somebody that's, the seventh viewer of this video is gonna like write some nasty comment and be like, oh, this guy like can't even come up with questions or something like that. Whatever it ends up being, like, the inner critics sit there and stand on your shoulder, and I'm just like, so in me, I'm like, how long am I comfortable with staying in that place before I have to do something that takes me out of that fear? And humor is always a great thing for me, so that's a good thing, right? For me, humor is like, if I'm feeling really down to myself, or I'm feeling like really judged, or like my inner critic is like, man, you just really suck today, like, it's not a great place to hang out and suffer all day.
But a lot of us do it.
But a lot of us
it feels good.
Well, good.
Well,
good.
yeah.
But we know it.
Yeah.
And it's familiar.
And it gets like your friends to be like, oh, like, don't worry about it. Like, the pat on the back, or no, you're just so awesome. Like,
remember that story I said earlier when I was like, if I get really sad, people will give me love.
Yeah, totally.
Like, so see, it does kind of play around.
And I think it starts because like when we're children, because like when you're a baby, when you whine, like your parents like give you attention. So like, you know how like let's say like your parents are like playing on the iPad, or they're watching TV and they're not paying attention to you.
How young are your parents?
On their cell phone, or on their Xbox 360.
I feel like this is more of a reading the comics or Scrabble conversation, but
right. Yeah, like they're watching like America's Funniest Videos or something. So my way of getting attention is to cry, and which is whining.
Yeah.
So if I'm sad and I do my pouty puppy face, then like I'll get attention. So I think similarly, like we're conditioned to do that. So which is why we're not willing to take responsibility. And like, it's easier to blame someone else. Like, oh well, Jeffy was an asshole anyways. Like, he's
call me Jeffy.
He was the reason why I didn't become a mentor coach.
Sure. Oh jeez.
Instead of like, well, Davidson, let's take a look at that. Like, did you call it enough? Like, did you, like whatever it is, right?
Sure. Well, let's stay back in the thing that you were just touching on, because I think that's a really great. It's an interesting place to look, right? Like back then, before we knew we had needs, we would come up with ways that we would know, hey, if I do this, then I can usually I can expect this kind of response. And if I don't get that response, then maybe it's a choose your own adventure book. Maybe it's I just amplify this thing to get it. Or maybe it's like, well, that didn't work, so I didn't get the love or the attention. Now I'm going to go, I don't know, knock a picture frame off a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
To get the attention.
Yeah.
And so back then, when you don't have the words, other than, you know, baby talk and hand signals and stuff, like you said, like crying was a way of getting what you need.
Right.
And if we look at how, even in the early days, like we were learning to express our needs by doing things.
Yeah.
We haven't actually, as men, and I think this is bigger than a conversation about just men. I think humans in general, like looking for support, looking to get their needs met, isn't necessarily something that's super common or super comfortable.
Yeah, totally. Because you might be worried that, like, oh, like, what if they say no? Like, what does that mean? What does that make it mean about you?
About you.
Like, I'm never going to ask again because last time I asked 10 years ago, she said no. And then that's what's going to go in my mind. And I'm like, oh, I might as well just play it safe and not go, you know, not ask for what I actually want.
Yeah, like, so it's all based on, like, things that happened from your past. And you're like, because it's like, hey, I got this evidence that if somebody says no, then this is what that means.
It just takes one evidence ingrained in my mind permanently.
Yeah. But then, you know, I mean, I think it's also, we have just as much evidence to prove ourselves unlovable or not worthy of attention or not worthy of getting our needs met as we can look for things to go the other way too. You know, and so then all of a sudden we're just sitting here all day like going, one in the I'm awesome pile, one in the I suck pile, one in the I'm up. Nope, that goes in the suck pile. You know, more suck, and you know, and that's where I think a lot of us, you know, get like, you know, some level of unworthiness or at least an insecurity around it. And as men, like who goes around and talks about their insecurities, being like, man, I got this. You know, I mean, what did it used to mean for you before you could openly talk about it?
Well, actually, I think it's important. Like, I didn't even have the awareness. Like most of the time, like it was just automatic. Like, so for me, like I was just like, you know, some days I would just feel like, man, like why is life so hard? Like why is life so unfair, right? So it was a lot of like just blaming the world, right? Like it was just like, oh yeah, it was because like I grew up like a certain way. Like, oh, it was because of my parents. So it was easier to kind of put the blame on someone else, right? But then as I've been doing this work with you and all of us, I have the awareness like, oh wait, like, okay, that happened in the past. Like, you know, I didn't get that job that I wanted, and because of that, like, I'm just not smart enough, or like I'm not brilliant enough, or you know, so just the feedback, and then what has happened recently from having these conversations, it's like, all right, well let's peel back, like and then I realized like, oh, okay, because of I've been rejected 30 times, that's why I don't do that thing anymore. And then now I have awareness, and you know, it's still like tough. Like sometimes it doesn't go away, but at least I have the awareness, and then I can practice with a coach to you know, work on how I can create practices, even though it might suck, and you know, every rejection still feels like a slap in the face, you know. So
with or without baby powder.
With baby powder, with the gloves.
Oh jeez.
With the Michael Jackson gloves.
Yeah. Well, you said something there, right? Is, you know, awareness is a muscle, and I think that, you know, when we first start getting it, like you say, it can be like this super. It can be a nugget of gold, or it can be a super really real realization that can be like, well, shit.
It's scary sometimes.
It can be scary, and so, you know, you said like the whole not good enough, or like getting rejected based on the past, and so you said you've been like, as a result of getting that awareness and growing that awareness, you have started to take steps or practice things that don't allow that, I guess, I'm not important or I'm not worthy to actually be the thing that drives. So what are some of the things that you took on to like start shifting that, like, you know, little pieces at a time?
Yeah, I think actually you brought up a good point. So asking for what you want, I think, is actually one of the main shifts, because like, for instance, you know, like I'll actually ask for what I want a lot more. Like the other day I asked my friend, I was like, hey, you know, like would you be kind enough to write me like a LinkedIn recommendations? And it would mean the world to me. And he was actually grateful. He was like, oh, like thanks, and like actually now I know how I could reciprocate like your advice, and I would be more than glad to do it. Whereas like my original story would be like, oh, like he's gonna think I'm a bother, or that like I'm just doing this because I want something from him. So it was a lot of like being in my head, and it's like, oh, like I asked someone once and they never did anything, and then my story was like, oh, they don't love me, that's why they didn't write it. But it could be like they have a billion other things, like life itself, right? So, but my story was just like, oh, like because that person said no, I'm never gonna ask again,
Yeah, and something you said in that was like, it seemed like there was an association that needs, and there was a story that needs equaled burden.
Yeah,
at least
totally.
at some point in time.
I think a lot of us have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and
like what would be one for you? Because I feel like that's universal for everyone.
Like what are one of my needs?
Or
what's my story around it?
Oh, that's a good one too. I guess what is one specific need that you need, but you still sometimes struggle with asking for? So like
Insert Jeopardy theme song. See, I just did it again.
Joker mask.
Yeah, needs, man. I don't have needs. I'm totally kidding. That was my old story. Like I can't depend on anybody to give me my needs. So that was my story.
Yeah.
Is like,
especially Davidson.
Yeah, I had to go at it alone. I mean, I felt like, one, it wasn't like really. I think some of the stories were, you're not supposed to have needs. If you do have
because
needs,
you're a guy, right? Because you're a man. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of that's true, and some of it I can probably just attribute to it was how I was programmed. So whether I attribute it completely to like being a man or it being something that was driven on masculine and or feminine,
just your life.
It was just my experience. Like it just wasn't. But it was weird because like I would handle everybody else's needs.
Yeah, so you're really good at that.
Thanks.
By the way.
Yeah, but to the point where I would give so much that I would take myself out in the process.
Yeah.
And then when I'm asking for what I need, it's actually from this place of like I'm totally empty.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because from that place, I'm angry.
Yeah.
Because like, and the story is like nobody fucking shows up for me, and the reality is I may have just not asked anybody to show up for me.
Yeah.
And that's changed enormously in this year because the amount of people that have shown up for me like makes me emotional thinking about it. Like the way that people have shown up for me. The things that people,
what's an example of how someone has shown up for you?
So the proposal for my engagement.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I had people. I don't live here. I live in Nashville, and so my I don't even know where I am right now. I know I'm like by Grand Central or something like this. I'm like, there's a tree, and there's a rooftop, and there's a chair.
That's a green room right here.
Yeah. This is totally CGI right here. But there were so many moving parts to it to pull it off, and through asking for help and asking for what I need, I ended up having a friend loan me an apartment that he had on the market, and as a realtor, set up a roof, enroll and convince the doorman that I was supposed to be there, set up candles on the roof, had somebody crouching in a behind a plant in 25-degree weather for 15 minutes. Having people make phone calls for me and pull friends together and show up at a restaurant. Having a friend incognito in a parka with flowers in the middle of New York on the street, walking up behind me, and I couldn't have orchestrated that by myself. And it was everybody was so grateful to be able to play a role in my life, in my vision, in my success, that I think everything that happened up to that point started laying planks for me to be able to ask something that for me seemed so big and grandiose, but to them it was like, oh my God, this is going to be so beautiful. I can't wait to be involved. So
Yeah.
So that was a really big need,
Yeah.
but that was for like orchestrating an event.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like on the daily, it's like admitting that I'm off and feeling a little down, or just like something's going on, and asking for love in some form, like not even necessarily like physical. We're not even necessarily talking sex,
Right.
but we're just talking like human touch, like words, like whatever it ends up being.
Right?
Acknowledgement, like acknowledging people for who they are in this world, and and the light that everybody is. So but before this, like saying thank you when somebody said something really nice, they'd be like, "Oh, I really like your hair." I know it's great, but I would usually come up with a story that would not be, and I would be like, "Oh, thanks," and then on the inside I'd be like, "Yeah, no, that's not really cool." And so I would knock it down. I would be like, I couldn't be with it.
Yeah.
So I'd make a joke. Ha ha. Go figure. See the cycle that is still happening right now. So, but yeah, those are some of the stuff that opened up for me around like needs. Like what were some of the things that like you entered into around like being able to start asking for needs, and like where did you start? Where have you ended up now?
Yeah. I think what I realized is I guess I thought I was similarly, like I thought I was a burden to people. So it was a lot of it was just asking for like support. When like let's say, I mean like it's like everything, but I would say like any type of support. Like I felt like I just didn't want to bother someone, right? Like even you, right? Like I'm like, oh, like why would I call Jeff? Like he's probably recording something, or he's probably on a phone with a client. So I had my story was that like, oh, like he's so busy. Like why would he take time out of his busy day to help me with, like maybe like I have like I want you to help me support with like creating my budget, and that's actually something that I did ask you with, where and because of that, like my budget is like updated like on a daily basis, so I couldn't have done it without you. Whereas before I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be a burden to you, but then from our conversations it's like, well, oh no, wait, we're both getting something out of it, because like you two are you want accountability in regards to your budget, and just having that like resource so we can kind of keep each other to what we say we want to do, so that I can't just give up one day and be like, like I kind of don't feel like updating my budget. You'll be like, hey Davidson, remember when you asked me like you want me to remind you to complete your budget so that you can be set for April's, So I think that's like a perfect example of one.
When you were saying that, and you said like burden, I almost was curious as to like, okay, so we were saying that like sometimes we don't ask for what we need because we feel that we're a burden to somebody,
and just rejected too. Like let's say like you didn't pick up, right? Sometimes like I'll be like, see, told you he is busy as hell, and that you're not worthy of his time. So like let's say you like hypothetically like this would never happen, but let's say like you were super busy and you had 5 client calls back to back to back. Let's say you didn't call me. My like original Davidson would be like, see, like you don't, but then like. But who knows? Like maybe like you also had a bad day and you just don't want to deal with it right now, right? So it's like all these preconceived notions, and so then but now I can have the empathy because we have been practicing and just like communicate, and like I will straight up be like, hey, like I'm feeling kind of like lost right now, and before that I wouldn't even be able to say that just because it's like weird for a guy to say that to another guy, but I could have been like I was able to say that to like Beth or Babel or Melissa, right? Because it's like, oh, they're women, like they would understand, So that's like a big shift. I feel like.
How has your relationships with? Because I feel like we interact a lot with people that we went through the program with. I mean, it's just pretty common to have that. And how is your relationships with men in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that has shifted the most. Like, I called my dad, which I haven't spoken to in God knows how long years, and it was nice like being with him, like the sadness, like him crying on the phone. It's like beautiful, you know. And mentors I've had, like my VP and my directors and other like mentors, like actually they were, because I've created the space and because we kept practicing, like when I practiced with you, you know, one of my mentors was like, oh, Davidson, like you know, it's emotional, like I didn't want to cry in front of you know, our teammates, so he called me separately and was like, hey, like I'm getting emotional, and like creating that space where other men could be vulnerable and be like that connection in heart, like holy crap, like that's so powerful, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's just everywhere. Like my director and my VP, I was able to be like, hey, like thank you so much for the mentorship, thank you for believing in me, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I spoke to my old manager today and we had like a really long conversation, and you know, he was like, oh, it's fortuitous because I was actually going to call you, but I was kind of scared, and I was like, honestly, I was scared to call you too. So I called him, and he's doing great in his new role now, and like it was nice just connecting, you know. Whereas like in the past, I'll be like, yeah, probably not, until he calls me, like I'm not going to call him. Like, you know, why should I do it? He's the manager, he should do it. You know.
What did you? I haven't talked this. I haven't talked
this
much in a while. Now
I know, right? It's like kind of uncomfortable.
Well, you know, so you said like you were scared to do it. You know, so I mean, fear. You know, we kind of come back to fear, right? Like, you know, fear is what makes us do all this stuff.
Yeah,
you know, it's fear of something. Like,
and fear is good, right? Sometimes it's like, so I don't jump out because of my hubris, or to see like how fun, you know, to see like how my body, you know, just like it's good sometimes. Like to have that fear.
Yeah. Well, it's an indicator like anything else. I think it's just it's one of the more powerful ones that almost like makes us do something, or it creates it creates something for us to do something that protects us from something, like as simple as making a joke or laughing or something like that.
Yeah, like what we mentioned earlier.
You know, and I don't know, I don't get the impression that men also sit around talking about their fears.
Not as often as we should. Right? Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I get something out of it, because I think at the end of the day, we all have a lot of the same, like, base fears. Like, I bet, like, right now, if we were to each list, like, 3 of them, that more than likely one of them would match.
Okay.
And, like, not like...
So what are your 3 fears now?
Oh, you make me go first?
Let's do it, yeah.
Make me go first. Well, I have a super irrational fear of garbage disposals.
Really?
But that's actually not what I'm talking... Yeah, that Final Fantasy... Or not Final Fantasy, Final Destination.
Oh, yeah.
With that whole
my
scene
God.
with the glasses... No.
Yeah.
No. I actually dropped a screw in a garbage disposal one time, and it seized, and I went to Home Depot and I bought a new one, and I was going to install the new one, but then my roommate came home and he's like, well, why don't I just take the screw out? And I was like, well, you do it, I'm leaving the house. But yeah, no, fears. And I may have just done it again. Fears. I hate judgment. I don't like feeling like other people are judging me.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, straight up. I mean,
yeah.
It probably means something deeper about me. It probably means that, like, I'm a fraud, or I'm a failure, or, like, maybe I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. But my ego thinks I am. And so, you know, I have fears around judgment and being a failure, and...
Yeah.
Probably just about, like... Yeah, like, just being alone, like, unlovable. Like, if I were to do something... that made somebody upset, then that would mean that they no longer cared about me. That doesn't look as the same as it does now, but that's how it used to look. Like, if you were upset about me, like the way that I grew up, you know, it wasn't a frequent thing where parents were upset, but the way that I felt it, the way that I felt it in my core, and the way that my, like, I guess my emotional capacity or emotional conditioning chose to respond was scared shitless, like a scared little boy. And so, I mean, so those are some of the ones that, you know, rear their ugly head up, you know, from time to time. But I don't know. Any of those show up in your world at all?
Yeah, judgment definitely resonates with me. I feel like because I've been putting myself out there more since I've gone through the program. Like for instance, like in my blog, like I write a lot. I think I have up to like 5,000 views now or something. So very proud of that. But sometimes occasionally people would just be like, hey, like. They'll say something that like kind of like rubs me the wrong way, and I'm just like, oh, see, I knew I shouldn't have done it, Yeah. But then I realized, I think like the source of it, like you said, like comes from childhood, and for me, I think it came down to, like I didn't really do well in school, so some of the judgment was like, I think some of it's actually self-judgment as well, because I was like, oh, like see, like of course I'm not as smart as all these brilliant people that get into like Swarthmore or like just like really good schools, and I was always like comparing myself like like just I think it's natural to compare because I think that's just humans in general, but because of that, like I'm just like, oh yeah, of course you're not like good enough, right? But I guess like now I realize like it's not a zero-sum game. Like I think we can both win, right? So it doesn't have to be like, oh, if Jeff wins I lose. It's more like, oh, because he got that breakthrough, like I got something out of his sharing, him being vulnerable as well. So I think that's like one of the big shifts.
What would you say? I don't know if we talked about this, but well, yeah, we talked about things that we're less scared to do. I guess as of now, and we've kind of talked about like so far. If we were to wrap up, I see we're kind of coming up, on an hour.
Woo! You guys actually listened to us
we
for
made
an
it to
hour.
I feel like
stuff.
We should move this a little bit so that you're more in the frame.
After the last hour.
But
it's because he's better looking. That's why he wanted to. No.
But I mean, it would be cool, right? So like, if we look to recap some of what we talked about today, like, obviously we've talked about how coaching has benefited our lives. Yeah. We've talked about some things that I've gotten out of this is, man, coaching, it's not for everybody, and people don't do it because they need to fix themselves. It's not. I don't think we actually touched on that. Like there's a misconception.
Maybe that could be our next topic.
Maybe we'll talk about that. Yeah, but there's actually nothing wrong with you. It's just the facilities of your experience and who you are, and like in all of the radiances that it is. So we've talked about that. We've talked about masculinity, like misconceptions of masculinity. We've talked about fears. We've talked about needs. I almost wonder if anybody has made it to 57 minutes and 35 seconds.
Context.
Time context. Is like, usually at the end of our coaching calls, like we, from whatever awarenesses we get, we come up with like a practice or two to take on for the week.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And so I was wondering, like,
how about we could do VMAs between us?
Are we gonna do that too?
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be snap. We're doing it.
All right. Well, we got 2 minutes. We probably won't make it, but let's come up with. We'll do it anyway. Let's do like a practice. Like,
okay.
I feel like if anybody's made it this far, like
sure.
thinking
maybe
about,
they could take something what they see within themselves.
Sure.
And willing to take something on for the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Like I wonder, like this is the introductory to this thing, but like, what's one of your core fears? Like write it down. Like post it down below. I think that's a thing. Like I'm supposed to point down here, or there's a link going to be over here. Or it's mirrored backwards. But so like look at what is a fear that shows up. Okay. And just kind of post it below. And like I don't know, what's the practice like you can offer for anyone else to watch this?
Yeah. So I think a good practice. So for me, I would be willing to. So asking for what I want is still something I struggle with, like truly what I want, not like So I think that's something that I want to take on. So specifically, I would choose like an area of my life that I'm still like hush hush about, that I'm not asking for what I want, and communicate that. So I guess a good example could be.
You want to do it right now?
Yeah, sure. What do you mean, like on phone?
Well, no. I mean, we probably don't have time for that. But like, I mean, like, what is one of those areas that you want to talk about as we close up?
Yeah. That's a good point. So for me, it would be with my family,
Mm-hmm.
I would so like with my sisters, I guess, for example, you know, maybe just ask, hey, like let's go hiking together. Let's spend more time together. Sometimes my thing is like, oh, like I'm not cool enough to hang out with my sister, or like, you know, like she probably thinks I'm weird. I know it's like stuff that it's like in my head, but it's real. Like I'm like, yeah, like she's way too cool not to hang out with her weird ass bro.
Yes.
You know?
So I wonder, like, so yeah, you're gonna take that on, and by when are you gonna do that?
I can do that this weekend. We're going to see each other this weekend, so I'll just ask her in person.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then for the people that have been watching here, what's one thing you can take
Sorry to
on?
embarrass you, Tina.
Tina, you're in full effect here. But like for people that are watching, like what is one thing that, you know, what is a need of yours that you haven't asked for and what you can take on?
Yeah.
You know, and also put it below. Like,
wait, Jeff, I'm not letting you. So what's one
I'm
thing
gonna
that?
do it too?
Oh, snap! He's
a need for me. I need a little bit more accountability in my life around some of the stuff that I'm creating. And one of the things that I've been resisting doing is rewriting